Good afternoon and welcome to this special workshop meeting for the City of Coppers Cove held this 27th day of July 2021. The time is 5:31 and this meeting is now called to order. This meeting is being conducted by telephone and live video streaming to limit face-to-face meetings in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19 coronavirus. The phone number was posted on the agenda. All individuals listening on the call will be muted. Comments on agenda items submitted 2 hours prior to the meeting will be read at the time City Council considers the related agenda item. A recording of the telephonic meeting will be available upon written request. This meeting is also being broadcast live through Channel 10 and the city's YouTube channel. A link to the city's YouTube channel broadcast is posted on our Facebook page. Would you please rise for invocation and pledge of allegiance?
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us here all together. Lord, watch over us as we make our decisions in the best interest of all the people. And Lord, watch over all elected and appointed officials as they do the same. And Lord, watch over all military and civilian and first responders as they keep us safe and keep us free. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Diaz,
Here.
Joanne Cortland,
Here.
Fred Chavez,
Here.
Dan Yancey,
Here.
Jay Manning,
Here.
Diane Campbell, Vanya Hart, Jack Smith.
Thank you. Now we have announcements. Ms. Cortland. Ms. Cortland, do you have any announcements? No? Mr. Chavez?
No, ma'am, I have nothing.
Mr. Yancey? Mr. Manning? Ms. Campbell? Ms. Hart? Mr. Smith?
None, thank you.
Mr. Havilah, do we have announcements tonight?
Yes, ma'am. On Saturday, the 31st, the Scottish Rite is holding a bowling tournament fundraiser to support the Coppers Cove Police Department LEAF program, which is the Law Enforcement Assistance Fund. And then this Thursday at 5 o'clock, some of our elected officials will be participating with the Chick-fil-A Back to School Bash at Chick-fil-A here in town.
Thank you. Next, we have workshop items. Item 1, presentation, discussion, and direction on the ad valorem tax rate for fiscal year 2021-2022. Ariana Beckman, Director of Budget.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. We're going to continue our discussion on the FY 2021-22 budget, proposed budget. So tonight's discussion will include a review of the property tax rates, their financial impact to the proposed budget, and some of the recommended changes to the proposed budget. Information shared with you tonight and reviewed with you tonight will help you make a sound decision when proposing a proposed tax rate, which is scheduled for Thursday, July 29th at 5:30 p.m. So we start our discussion with a comparison of the regional property tax on single-family home. What you see in the screen before you, we have average current market values for a single-family home, average taxable values, tax rates, and then the average city taxes for comparing Coppers Cove to the other cities in the region. As you can see, the very first line on there is Coppers Cove. The average current market value for a single family home in Coppers Cove is $145,878. The amount that average single family home value, the taxable value is a little bit less. It's $137,345. Tax rate at 0.7865. That gives you an average city taxes for a single-family home in Coppers Cove in the amount of $1,080. The rest of the cities, I'm not going to go over each and every one of that, but we have Killeen. We're comparing ourselves to Killeen, Harker Heights, Belton, Temple, Gatesville, Lampasas, Waco, Georgetown, Liberty Hill, and Leander. Now, the first two columns, those amounts are from the 2021 or 22 certified values. The tax rate, however, most of the cities that we reached out to, they have not taken their proposed budget, or we could not find information on their proposed budget in the website. So the tax rates, some of the tax rates that you see asterisks by the city, those tax rates are from previous fiscal year. So the same information, it's on the graph here just to show a comparison or illustration where Coppers Cove falls when you compare our city on the amount of property tax compared to the cities in the region. So as you can see, we're in the middle of the cities we have compared ourselves to. Any questions on this before we move on?
Mayor, City Manager Brian Haverhill, I just want to point a few things out to council as we're kind of looking at this slide. Coppers Cove, in terms of the average market value, we are the second lowest in comparison to the cities that you see on the screen. In terms of taxable value, we are the third lowest, with Gatesville and what was the other one? Lampasas below us, and then every other city above us. And then with the average city taxes, we're kind of in the middle of that chart. And that's how this chart is kind of arranged, so that average city taxes kind of gives us that progression from low to high. There are a few cities I want to point out. On the left side, we have Temple. Temple actually has a average market value of $192,000 and an average taxable value of $148,000. Of the cities on here, that is the city that has one of the largest differences between those two numbers. What does that mean? That means that their market value has increased much faster than their taxable values. And so the next question that I would have is, well, why are the taxable values that low? And it's because those taxable values continue to lag behind the market by a few years. And so you won't see that number catch up until 2 to 3 years from now, as the appraisals are done through the Central Appraisal District in Bell County. In addition to that, the average city taxes received in Temple, based on those values, are $951, and Coppers Cove is just over $1,000. And so with a higher value and a lower tax rate, for a single-family home, their taxes are actually pretty low. But in Temple, they have a much larger industry base as well. And so a lot of that industry is able to take on that tax burden for the people living in that city. So that's one of the ones I wanted to point out. The other one I wanted to point out is the city of Leander, which is on the far right. You see their market and their taxable values are actually pretty high. The average city taxes are actually the highest in the region, or at least in the compared cities that we have up on the screen as well. Leander utilizes or demands, I guess, within their residents that live there, that they provide a number of services that many of the other cities don't, to the level that they do. And one of those levels of services, their parks system. Their park system in Leander is very well connected and very well maintained. They have a rather large park system that many people from around the region go to participate there. And so that's one of the priorities they have set for themselves. And the last thing I wanted to point out is that there are cities on here that also have other revenue streams that are significant compared to their property taxes they receive. City of Lampasas is one of those examples. They actually have their own electric utility. And so they receive a portion of those electric rates as revenue to the general fund. And so that's tremendously supplements the services they provide. Georgetown is another one of those cities that also has an electric utility that they sell electricity to their residents also. And within those cities, the residents don't have an option of where to buy their electricity. They buy it from the city. So any other questions that you may have thought about as we continue to talk through that slide?
Just from a comment perspective, if you look at that slide before, it talks about our tax rate, but you look at the next slide over, even though the tax rate might be higher than everybody, from an affordability standpoint, Coppers Cove is a very affordable city to live in, and I think that's one of the things we're not doing a good job of, is advertising the affordability factor, because it's really doesn't have anything to do with the tax rates. How much money is actually coming out of your pocket on an annual basis to pay property taxes? And I think that's a significant chart that points out that affordability. So glad it's in there.
Just a reminder, everybody needs to be talking into their mic.
Was I talking too low?
Well, the whole time you were facing the
Talk
other
to
way.
the mic.
Thank you.
I don't need to repeat that, do I?
No.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to point out, I always talk into the mic.
Do we want to do this tonight?
No.
Any other questions? All right, and talking about property tax rate has two components: the maintenance and operations rate, which funds or is used to fund general day-to-day operating expenses such as public safety, administration, other departments such as building, planning, parks, streets, and other admin type departments. And then we have the interest and sinking or debt rate, which is used to pay all the principal and interest on the debt that City of Coppers Cove has issued. Now, you see on the screen, there's two property tax rates that you see on the screen, the no new revenue tax rate and the voter approval tax rate. We work with Justin Carruthers, the tax assessor. He's the one that calculates those two rates, and what those two rates are: the no new revenue tax rate. It provides the taxing entity the same amount of revenue they received in the year before, and we'll see those calculations in the next few slides. And then the voter approval tax rate, it's a tax rate that it splits into the M&O tax rate and the debt tax rate. And then you combine those two, and that's your voter approval tax rate. And we'll see the calculation of that tax rate here in a few. So state law requires that appraisal districts certify property rolls by July 25th of each year. And then they provide those to taxing units, so we can then make a decision on the proposed tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year. The graph before you, it's an illustration of the historical certified values, the last 10 years. As you can see, when you compare 2021 certified values to 2020, there's a 10% increase there. The next few slides, we're going to go over the calculation of the two tax rate, the no new revenue tax rate and the voter approval tax rate. As mentioned earlier, the no new revenue tax rate, it basically provides the same amount of revenue when we compare the same number of properties in 2 fiscal years. So we compare the same amount of properties this year with the same amount of properties last year, and the formula is designed in that manner that if the values go up, the property tax rate goes down, and the values go down, then the property tax rate goes up. So in order to do that, so we have to start with last year's taxable values. As you can see in the screen, the very first line is it shows the 2020 taxable value adjusted, which is at $1,441,199,859. After you take out the tax ceilings, you add Chapter 42 adjusted values, and then you take out the properties that first qualified for an exemption last year. That gives us the 2020 adjusted taxable value. We then multiply that by our tax rate of 0.7865. That gives us the adjusted 2020 taxes, which you then add the refunds, and that will give you the adjusted 2020 taxes with refunds, which is at $9,962,929. We then compute or calculate 2021 values, so you can kind of compare those two amounts. So we start with 2021 certified taxable values, which are at $1,600,703,116. We add the protested values. We take out tax ceilings. We take out annexed properties, which we didn't have any this year. We also take out the new improvements or the personal taxable values, and that will give us the 2021 adjusted taxable value, which then we take the amount from the previous slide, which was the adjusted 2020 taxes with refunds. We divide that by 2021 adjusted taxable value, and that gives us the total no new revenue tax rate of 0.724609. So if City Council were to adopt this tax rate, this will provide the same amount of revenue on those same number of properties that were in the tax roll last year. Any questions on this? In order to, now we'll continue our discussion. So the next property tax rate that we're going to discuss is the voter approval tax rate. So in order to do that, we first have to determine what our debt requirements are. So what you see in the screen in front of you is all the outstanding debt that City of Copperas Cove has, starting with 2007 certificates of obligation, and continue all the way to 2021 COs, which you approved at last City Council meeting. So that gives us a subtotal of $4,623,320 for total debt. We then adjust that debt. You may remember when we were discussing proposed budget, we recommended that we use $300,000 from fund balance from the debt fund, because the amount that sits in that fund balance can only be used for pay debt. So we suggested we use $300,000. to adjust our total debt requirement. So we take that out, and then we take out the revenue from tax freeze. So that gives us a net debt requirement of $3,943,395. So in order to calculate the voter approval debt tax rate portion, we take that net property tax revenue or adjusted debt. And the next line that you see, 9975, that's a requirement that Senate Bill 2 added 2 years ago. So the 2021 anticipated collection rate was calculated at 99.75%. So we adjust the debt by that percentage, and we then divide that amount by 2021 total taxable value, and that gives us the debt tax rate of 0.278215. Now, when you propose and adopt a property tax rate, this tax rate or the debt tax rate cannot be changed. This is what we need to pay by law. Any changes that you make to your proposed tax rates is going to be to the M&O portion of it, the one that goes to general fund. Any questions?
Mayor Diaz?
You may be asking the same question.
Go
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Could we back up and get a little bit better explanation on revenue from tax freeze?
I'll let Ryan answer that question. He can explain better.
Yeah, so the line that says revenue from tax freeze, when the state prepared the formula that we have to use, and we're required to use their formula for all of these tax rate calculations, it does not take into account the revenue received from the properties that have a tax freeze. So essentially what it does is it removes those properties that, for the debt rate portion of the calculation, removes those properties that have a tax freeze. And those properties are individuals over 65 or disabled that have selected to freeze their taxes. And so in order to ensure that we work with our chief or the tax collector assessor, and that our tax rates are calculated to account for that, so that we have the correct revenue in each of those sources, we have to make an adjustment for that. If we didn't make this adjustment, the interest and sinking fund or the debt fund would include a tremendous surplus of revenue every year. And so for our city, we need to ensure that we utilize those estimates to the best ability that we can, which includes ensuring that that revenue from the properties that have a tax freeze are properly allocated between debt service and maintenance and operations. Because the calculation that the state requires us to use doesn't take that into account. Does that provide a good explanation for you?
You said that was from over 65 and disability, but it doesn't have anything to do with the 100% disabled.
No, sir. It has nothing to do with that, because that's 100% exempt.
Okay.
We don't get any revenue from those properties. We don't get any property tax revenue. I need to be specific, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. I also wanted to point out on the following slide where we actually show the calculation for the debt service tax rate. Ms. Beckman pointed out that the state requires that we include existing and anticipated debt payments. That's something that we as a city organization have always done, even before the state required it.
Thank you, Ron. So the other component of the voter approval rate is the maintenance and operation tax rate calculation. So we start with the 2020 M&O tax rate of 0.497144, and then 2020 adjusted taxable value, and that will give us the 2020 M&O taxes of $6,341,283. We add the taxes refunded for years 2020, and that will equal adjusted M&O taxes of $6,365,190. We then divide adjusted M&O taxes by 2021 adjusted taxable value, and that equals 2021 no-new revenue M&O rate of 0.462944. Now, 2 years ago, before Senate Bill 2 passed, the no-new revenue M&O rate could be increased by 8%. The Senate Bill 2 decreased that to 3.5%. So when we take 2021 voter approval M&O rate of 0.462944, we multiply that by 3.5%. That gives us the 2021 voter approval M&O rate of 0.479147. Now we take the debt rate that was calculated previously, which it's at 0.278215. We add the M&O portion of 0.479147. We then add, this is a new requirement or something new that Senate Bill 2 started, to where you can use unused increment rate from previous year. Last year, if you remember, our proposed tax rate was a little bit lower than the voter approval rate. So that difference between those two is the 2020 unused increment rate, which was 0.002706. So when you add all those three, the total voter approval rate, it's at 0.760068. Any questions on the voter approval tax rate? This is just an illustration of the split between the M&O rate and the debt rate. For the 2020 current tax rate, for 2022 no new revenue tax rate, 2022 voter approval tax rate, and then 2022 proposed tax rate. As you can see on the items to the right, all three of them, the debt rate doesn't change. The only piece that changes is the M&O rate. The slide before you, it shows the changes in property tax revenue. These were the estimated values, or when we start discussion with our appraisal districts in April 2021. As you can see, the general fund property tax revenue at that point was at $6,552,909. So now we have received certified values. And then what this slide shows here, it's what those amounts are for the current rate, which is at 0.7865, the no new revenue rate of 0.724609, and then to the right, the voter approval of 0.760068. So if City Council were to approve the current tax rate, which is the tax rate that was included in the proposed budget, with the certified values, we will see an increase to the tax revenue in the amount of $464,715. That increase will affect only the maintenance and operations side of it, as you can see on the second line to the last. The debt portion does not change. If City Council were to approve the no new revenue tax rate of 0.724609, then Our revenue is going to decrease by $406,247. And then if City Council were to propose and approve the voter approval tax rate of 0.760068, then that change in revenue is $92,750. Any questions on this slide? The slide here, it's a summary of our estimated beginning fund balance, the projected revenues, projected expenditures, ending fund balance, ideal fund balance, and then over or under ideal fund balance. The very first column is what was included in the budget. The next three columns, it's there's three different tax rate. Well, the first one is the same as the current tax rate. And as you can see, the beginning fund balance does not change. Projected revenues, those are going to change based on those revenues we just discussed in the previous slide. And then projected expenditures remain this or are shown to be the same as what was included in the proposed budget. And the ending fund balance is going to change based on the revenue projected for different tax rates. So is the over and under ideal fund balance. So if City Council were to adopt the current tax rate, then our over and under ideal fund balance or our projected end fund balance is going to be over our ideal by $3.1 million. If City Council were to adopt the new revenue tax rate, the projected ending fund balance is going to be over our ideal by 2.3. And if you were to adopt the voter approval tax rate, that number is set at 2.8. This here is just a summary of how each of the tax rates we just discussed, how will they impact general fund financially. So again, the 0.7865 proposed tax rate will increase our revenues in general fund by $464,000. There's no expense reduction if you were to adopt that rate. If you adopt the no new revenue tax rate of 0.724609, the revenues will decrease by $406,000, and so will expenditures. And then if you were to propose and approve the voter approval tax rate of 0.760068, the revenues will increase by $92,750, and there's no expense reduction needed. Moving on, the screen before you shows the very first column, the proposed budget. It's what was proposed to City Council on June 1st. And we have revenues at $18,512,478, expenditures at $19,578,649, and revenues are under expenditures by $1,066,171, projected ending fund balance of $7,472,827, with ideal fund balance of $4,757,651, and our ending fund balance is over our ideal by $2,715,176. Now, when we when we presented the proposed budget to City Council, there were several items that were initially included in the proposed budget, but in order to make general fund balance, we had to take some items out. Now, some of those items are being proposed to be put back in the budget. And we'll go line by line on the items that you see in front of you. But we start with the additional revenues of $92,750. That's if you were to approve the voter approval rate, we will have an additional $92,000. The very first line item under expenditures is the appraisal district expense adjustments. When we were working in the budget, we had included a certain percent increase, but then as we were progressing in the budget process, we actually received the appraisals proposed budgets for Correal and La Paz, and they were much higher than what we included in the budget. So we had to add $6,585 to account for those quarterly payments we do for Correal and La Paz. So that's what that is. The second line item is some of the personnel changes in the IT department in the amount of $9,445,000. Then we have discussed the new position for IT. We had taken that out of the budget. Now we're proposing to put it back in. That will cost $64,000. The next line item or City Council approved for Public Safety STEP program, and the fire prevention was not included in there. So we're proposing to add that in our proposed budget. That change is $4,000. And then the last two items, it's some repairs to the Public Works Drive Road and the parking lot. So this project has been split into multiple departments, and majority of those departments are under water and sewer. So they could afford those changes, and they have been included in the budget. But again, when we were working on general fund, in order to balance that budget, we took out these two line items that fall under general fund. So now we're asking to put those back in. So that's in total of $30,000. So when you add the revenues coming in, take out the expenditures that we're proposing to include in the proposed budget, that gives you a difference of, or you're short $21,280. And then the last column, it shows the changes to the proposed budget. When you add the revenues, take out your expenditures. That leaves you with the revenues of $18,605,228, expenditures of $19,692,679, and revenues are under expenditures by $1,087,451. Projected ending fund balance will be at $7,451,547. Our ideal fund balance, it's at $4,778,658. And our ending fund balance is over our ideal by $2,678,889. Any questions? So is everyone okay with having those items put back in the proposed budget?
If we include all these, particularly, the big ticket is the specialist, IT specialist. Now this is an annual salary.
Yes.
So if we if we delay that by a quarter, then that basically is 16,000, something like that. So that gets us pretty close to net zero right there. So that would be what I would recommend we post and look at hiring after the first quarter.
Mr. Yancey, we can do that, and that would make sense too. Does the rest of the council understand? Okay.
Any other comments? Questions?
Yeah, I can hear somebody's breathing onto the mic too. They're breathing.
My mic has been off, so it's not me.
Okay, moving on with the discussion. This is just a recap of what we discussed earlier. The tax rates, 3 different tax rates, and their impact, their financial impact to general fund. Any other comments on this?
So, Mayor and Council, on Thursday, you'll have to make a decision to propose a tax rate. It will be a record vote, which means you have to make a motion, a second, actually take a vote individually on what tax rate to propose. And so this is the informational, educational piece prior to Thursday, when you will have to take some action on a proposed tax rate.
We have also included changes to the other funds. As you all remember, we had a discussion on the hotel occupancy tax fund, and the amount that was allocated, it was higher than what was included in the budget. So we were proposing to add those changes to the proposed budget. So the hotel occupancy tax fund revenues, including the proposed budget, are at $109,875,000. Expenditures are at $109,675. And so their revenues are over expenditures by $200, and the ending fund balance is $135,137. So when we discussed the Hotel Occupancy Tax Fund, there was some changes to allocation to the chamber. And then that also affected our allocation to the Civic Center operations. So we're accounting for those changes. So Civic Center operations, we're going to increase the budget by $3,903 for that. And then for Chamber of Commerce request, we'll increase the budget by $22,112. So changes to the proposed budget, revenues remain the same. Expenditures increase to $135,690. Revenues are under expenses by $25,815, and that leaves us with the ending fund balance of $109,322. There are no other changes to any other funds, just some upcoming dates. As Ryan already mentioned, on Thursday, July 29th, you get the opportunity to have a record vote on the proposed tax rate. Then we have the public hearing on the proposed budget. And we're going to set the public hearing on tax increase and also set the date and location to adopt the tax rate, which is going to be August 10. So August 10, we'll have that public hearing. We'll adopt the proposed budget, adopt the tax rate, and adopt the long-range plans. Any other questions, comments?
Council, we have any questions? Appears none. Thank you very much, Ariana.
Thank you.
There's no comments or questions. There's being no further business on this agenda. The time is 6:16. I'll adjourn this meeting.